Hi, we make decisions every single day. Decaf or regular, go shopping today or wait until Sunday. Decisions every single day, almost every moment of the day. But when we have something a little bit more important to decide, we tend to revert back to using the pros and cons methodology of making that decision. What are the pros and what are the cons of making this decision, of picking this alternative? I'd like to suggest an alternative to the pros and cons by expanding the questions. What if, instead of saying, what are the pros and cons, you asked, what does this particular alternative make possible in the short term, medium term, and long term? And do that for every alternative that you're considering. First, think of the positives. What does this alternative make possible in the short, medium, and long term? And then for each of the alternatives, go back and ask, what is the negative and the potential downside of that particular alternative in the short, the medium, and the long term? One of the main reasons why you use this particular methodology is that it brings up your aspirations, makes you think forward, think future oriented, but it also, by considering the long-term potential downside, you're now thinking of potentially the unintended consequences of that particular alternative. And when you have a group of people going through this, either if it's a very large group and you break them into smaller groups and then have them come back together after they've done this exercise, you have a really rich conversation about what the alternatives can make possible and what might be the negatives down the road for choosing one alternative or another. And for those of you who are more visually oriented, like I am, I'm going to share my screen so you can see what your flip chart might look like. What does this alternative make possible? For alternative one, in the short term, in the medium term, in the long term. Alternative two, keep on going for whatever alternatives you're looking at. And then, what are the downsides of these alternatives? First alternative, in the short term, yeah, it might cost you a lot of money. In the long term, you might have an unintended consequence that because you used the money this time, it wasn't available for something else. But by taking a look at all three, short, medium, and long term, you've actually considered much more about what the possibilities are for your alternatives. So that's my tip for today. Whenever you're considering different alternative decisions, engage as many people as you want to in these possibilities, but consider not just the immediate pros and cons, but look at their possibilities in the short, the medium, and the long term, and what their potential downsides are in the short, the medium, and the long term. So that's the tip for today, and I'll see you next week.